Hey guys, it's BlockchainBrad, and today I'm very honoured to have Richard back on the channel. He is one of the key founders of VITE, that means fast in French, and it's all about a high-performance, decentralized ecosystem, and certainly involves blockchain. Richard, thank you very much for your time this evening.
Of course, Brad. It's always good to be back. Thanks for having me again.
No problem, mate. Just to cut to the chase, obviously we've caught up before. I like to try and represent companies that have real value. Now, you are fast by name and design. Tell us, though, in a recap, what is VITE all about in a nutshell, and what do you stand for fundamentally?
Sure. So VITE is a public blockchain, a layer one solution. We do two things. Number one is we're a payment network with no fees and fast settlement speed. Number two, we are a smart contract platform that allows decentralized applications to take advantage of the said fast network. So we tackle common issues that other public blockchains tackle. It's just a matter of who gets there fast and who can deliver on their promises. We have 40 employees, about 35 are engineers. And in the last 6 months since we launched, 6 or so months since we launched, we've been able to deliver our testnet. We've got a dAPP system running with a ledger based on block lattice paradigm of the DAG framework. We now have 41 public nodes. We have about 600 full nodes globally accessing our blockchain. We made tremendous strides in other ways, and I'm excited to share them with you.
Yes, likewise. And that's why, for all those who are listening and watching, it really is about providing those updates from the source. It's, I'm just a conduit trying to provide that opportunity as a platform. But Richard is here to update everyone on what VITE's been doing in their real offices with real people. Now, Richard, you talk about very openly the fact that you're this layered solution, you are blockchain based, and there are other camps out there, there are other blockchain groups. Now, is it really a case of being a race? And talk us through that. You mentioned that before.
I think so. There are many public blockchains out there, and everyone sort of has a claim of some way they're different. So some have claims that they're extremely special because of speed or because of security or privacy. And they all have different ways to get there, right? Some use sharding, some use DAG like us. But ultimately, I think it's a matter of who gets to actually deliver on that promise. Many projects raise the cash, but don't spend the money in the right places. Some spend them in getting listed on exchanges or on marketing. Some others spend the money hiring engineers that work 996, as the Chinese saying goes,
right?
9 to 6 days a week,
yes,
to get things. So in that sense, I do believe that it's somewhat of a competition. I think good players in the industry are collaborative by nature. So we basically open sourced from day one. And so in fact, we're already seeing some people in the industry kind of using our concepts, to put it nicely, which is actually great. We're all here to propel this system forward. But in a way, it is sort of a race, and I'm happy to report that we're making good progress, as I previously mentioned.
Mm-hmm. We're going to find out exactly how. Let's get stuck into that. Now, first of all, we'll do a few recaps of what you are. You are essentially an ecosystem of value, and you have an ecosystem of dApps planned. So let's talk about that. How are you this ecosystem of value first?
So in terms of ecosystem of value, we have already launched the testnet, which is essentially functioning as the mainnet that is rich with all features required of a payment network. So transactions can be sent on a feeless model. It's a staking model. So if you have VITE, if you have VITE, you just stake a certain amount in order to secure quota for your transactions per second. And unlike Ethereum, your VITE does not go down as you send transactions. Mm-hmm. And then also separately, we have second level confirmation, meaning the confirmations can take place within seconds. In fact, it can be within just 1 second. So we highly recommend that your viewers, and yourself included, to download our wallet to try it out. We have received critical acclaim from various fans that have been using our product. In terms of payment network, we are fully live in terms of our consensus algorithm. We have 41 supernodes and about 600 full nodes, ensuring the integrity of the network. And the transactions are being made with very low confirmation time and with 0 fees. All you have to do is have some VITE in your wallet that you stake in order to secure the transaction per second quota that you need to send transactions. So in terms of future plans for our payment network, we're in contact with a number of stablecoin projects, trying to get them to issue their tokens on our platform. So many stablecoin projects right now are ERC20 for obvious reasons, but there are also some obvious drawbacks to that decision. And they're basically looking for the next home to land that would give them the fearlessness and the fast transaction speed.
And talk us through, Richard, sorry to interrupt, but talk us through why stablecoins. Why are you focusing on onboarding those as key integrators into your ecosystem?
To be a true ecosystem of value, we need to be able to facilitate transactions. Because of the volatility of cryptocurrency, merchants are unwilling to quote their merchandise in Bitcoin or Ethereum or any other cryptocurrency. So stablecoin seems to be the natural solution if someone wants to pay in crypto but still wants a reasonable user experience. So that's why stablecoin is an extremely important piece of the whole puzzle of the ecosystem of value.
Sure. Now, can you give us some hints with some names? Because obviously, I would assume you're focused on that depegging and decoupling from what we've seen is that connection with BTC and ETH, for quite some time now, this reliance and this uniformity of change in value. As we've seen the markets change, obviously VITE's change with it. So is the plan to decouple through this integration process?
Well, if you're looking for specific names of the stablecoin projects that we're working with, we are under NDAs, confidentiality agreements, and just mutual understanding with projects. So unfortunately, I can't disclose the exact name. But the number of players in this space is growing, but still not very large, right? And the number of legitimate projects out there is yet less. So I'll just say that we basically conduct thorough due diligence and ensure that we have seamless engineering integration with these projects before we sign any deal.
I appreciate that. And Richard, can we expect some sort of disclosures and information on your Medium in the short term about those?
Well, if the deals are successful, definitely.
Okay, so you're working on them now.
Yeah, so the thing is that we don't like to overpromise anything. So I would say maybe 60% of everything I'm telling you today would be things we've done, and 40% are things that are about done, right?
Yes, and I think that, to be honest, I think a lot of the people appreciate that, mate, because we want to hear what you're doing, but most importantly, what you can guarantee you've done, because that's those stepping stones towards more of your value. And we also do want to hear that plan, which is fundamental given your track record. If you didn't have that, I think it will be very difficult for people to really see the veracity and also the proof. But your track record is there simply from having known your company for some time. And that is not FOMO and it's not a shill. Let's talk about your verticals for a moment. I was mentioning dApps before. Games, entertainment, IoT, they're key verticals you're focusing on. Why and how's the progress going?
In terms of our ecosystem of dApps, I'm happy to announce that our smart contract capability is now live. So developers are able and welcome to develop with our Solidity++ programming language. So we are currently working on tools and libraries to help make the development process easier and more convenient. It's sort of like saying you can now build a house with all the necessary tools, but we want to make things even easier by giving you, a truck, by giving you a ladder, right? But you can do everything now.
So in that respect, sorry to interrupt, but with the SDK, for example, the suite of tools, is that all fully ready right now for those devs?
Yes, it's fully ready. Solidity++ is open source. In fact, we already have a number of developers looking to do something with them. We have some interns We have some interns at Berkeley that are looking to help us right now.
That's exciting. And also with regard to the Solidity++, I want to talk about that for a moment. Is that something that precludes you from the wider market because it is that specific language, or do you feel that it opens up opportunities because it is specific?
Solidity++ is similar to Solidity in syntax. The main difference being that we have asynchronous architecture. So certain keywords, certain ways you invoke functions will be different. We'll have a porting guide that will help existing Solidity developers to become more familiar with Solidity++.
Okay. And how easy is that going to be, Richard, in the future, given that we see other companies right now open up to a more generic languages, developing languages and programming languages?
Right.
Again, harping back to the access.
Sure. We do have projects in place. Some of these will be done internally. Some will be done by the community to introduce SDKs of other languages. So yes, so people will be able to program with JavaScript, for example. But in general, though, if you think about the amount of Solidity developers, it's a formidable number, right? There's no small number of people out there that know Solidity. So Solidity++ is basically a cousin of Solidity they have to learn a little bit more about.
It's a good way to put it. And in that respect, are you finding from your own research in your team that the developers utilizing Solidity via Ethereum, are they growing by number?
So that number is, to be honest, I haven't kept track with that, but I don't believe that number is coming down. So Ethereum's dominance, has been in existence for a while. And I believe that the most well-frequented applications are still built on Ethereum these days. The fact that when we talk to stablecoin projects, almost all of them have ERC20 is one piece of evidence for their popularity. So I think the amount of developers that are using Solidity, or at least know Solidity, even if they decide not to use Solidity in the future, that number is still very, very big.
Make a really good point. Now, with regard to the actual ecosystem verticals, we were mentioning before about games, or gaming rather, looking at other verticals like IoT and entertainment. Talk us through some more specifics. You know a lot. You are the leader of the entire team. What is the exact plan?
Yeah, so we are releasing a game in our wallet the end of this month or early next month. So we're basically trying to encourage people to download our wallet and play with it. So prior to the release of the game, they are able to send transactions, receive transactions, check for transactions, the basic functionalities. But I think that this game will be a fun element. It's a dAPP written on our smart contract platform. So it will also be a true use case of our payment network and smart contract platform. Separately from that, we actually also recently launched a discovery page on our wallet. So this is a place where people can claim, it's like a faucet. So you can claim VITE by simply logging into the platform. There will also be news and fun campaigns. We call them missions. So if you complete the missions, you get a certain amount of VITE tokens. But aside from this, with the advent of smart contract capabilities, we are now full steam ahead in terms of having others join the ecosystem and developing other useful applications.
I see.
So,
just to jump in there for a moment so the audience are aware, you're taking a two-pronged approach. You're doing internal dApps where you're trying to facilitate that mass adoption of VITE itself, but you're also then going to onboard those that are going to have their own ecosystems potentially or even own tokenized economies.
Yes, absolutely. And by the way, speaking of external applications, we're currently in partnership with the city of Syracuse in New York State. So for those outside of US, this is a fairly well-known city within the country. And the city government has a mandate to solve the problem of microloans for low-income residents. And one way of approaching this problem is to make a peer-to-peer solution that is highly transparent. And blockchain fits neatly into the picture. So we have been selected as the team to explore this partnership, to explore a blockchain solution for the city of Syracuse. There's already press release on this In fact,
One
our chief
meeting.
marketing officer, as we speak, is in Syracuse scoping out the entire project with the city government and the chief innovation officer's office, which is why he can't be here today. Otherwise, he would have been delighted to talk to you as well.
Yes, actually, Richard, on that note, I was reading into that partnership, that prospective plan, and I was wondering, is that going to be once again a more internal dAPP because it is run by VITE rather than a separate entity? Or will talk us through that, because obviously there's going to be serious value for VITE with that substantial partnership.
So the application is going to be used externally, obviously, but I think what you're referring to is the development process.
Right, exactly.
So I think the people that will be writing the code at this point will most likely be on the VITE Labs team, just because we're still preparing for documentations and easier developer tools for smart contract platform-based development. But the thing is that these projects with the government do take time. So what that means is that the scoping session will take some time. The requirement, the approval process for the end result of that scoping session will also take time. So by the time the city decides that this is definitely what we're going forward with, we might already have a community blossoming with developers who are willing to take this on.
I see.
I think it'd be fantastic if you have, a project built by Syracuse residents on blockchain to help out their fellow men or fellow women in Syracuse. So that would be the ideal outcome. That being said, if we move faster and we're efficient about this, then it's more likely that we do it at VITE Labs than otherwise.
Sure. And Richard, I've met you personally. I've been to your offices in your region of San Francisco, or just outside of. Now, I want to talk to you more about the potential for that being a pilot, because obviously this could be a template for other regions of the US and even globally. So are you thinking in that way right now?
Absolutely. I mean, we actually are the first team that walked into the office of OECD, or Office of Economic and Workforce Development in San Francisco.
Right.
But we recommended using blockchain for public sectors. So there's not a lot of talk on that at the city and state level, but we're hearing more and more. So here's another interesting case. We were recently talking to a mayor of Emeryville, which is another town here in California in the Bay Area, where they're saying that cannabis or marijuana, the trade of that is fully legal in the state of California, but it's not legal at the federal level. As such, banks are unwilling to open accounts for marijuana companies. So the way cannabis companies pay tax is literally by taking bags of money to the city hall, dropping them off.
That's not practical in any way.
Exactly. So there's now some lobbying effort to make this happen with stablecoins.
And it's an interesting point you make, because there's also no way of verifying tax revenues, and there's no record, there's no traceability. So the blockchain could really afford that traceability, ironically, to help not just the blockchain and for those entities and those startups, but also help the government. So again, the irony is there.
I think it's a win-win-win situation for those that are willing to be regulated by the law, right? So if you are willing to disclose your earnings, right, and you are, and then in return you get convenience, this would be a great solution. So we're obviously very much for it, and
clearly the marketplace there is substantial as well, Richard. I mean, we're talking about the potential medicinal value, also recreational, but it is substantial, that market.
Yeah, I mean, this is legalized in many European countries, right? US, on that sense, is very conservative. And this is only California we're talking about, right? If this gets legalized in 2 or 3 more states, then I think the need for this kind of solution is even stronger.
Well, imagine if it followed the suit of Canada, for example, where it went national. So it is possible, certainly. But I mean, the point we're making here is that you are discussing the potential for VITE to interact with agencies.
Right, exactly. And we also see these exactly as a pilot or a beachhead, right? So once we get people comfortable with the fact that blockchain can be used for good, and it's not always these scandals or thefts of coins or exchanges having problems in the news, then various stakeholders in the economy become more okay with the concept of blockchain helping them solve problems. Then blockchain can perhaps enter mainstream from that angle.
Well, Richard, let's get real about the token for a moment, because everyone would want me to ask this anyway, and I certainly want to know how can we, ensure that, how can we trust the potential value of your token? Because up to date, we've seen a lot of the uniformity of price action with BTC and ETH, and the reality is that's declined substantially over time. So again, as we talk about your true utility, how can we ensure that that reflects your value?
I think VITE is all about making things that are practical, usable, and we're not about cosmetics, marketing, right, and so on. I mean, obviously, anyone can say that. That's why what I said is probably a slogan of some blockchain projects out there. But given what we've done so far, I believe that you can take some comfort in that kind of stance. So number one, we did realize our promise of building a smart contract platform built on asynchronous architecture, right? Solidity++. We basically released 4 clients, right? We have an iOS wallet, a Android wallet, a mobile wallet, and a desktop wallet, and a web wallet. We have a network of supernodes globally, right? So 41 supernodes and 600 full nodes globally. And none of this is, so in terms of supernodes, 5 of them are run by VITE Labs. So everyone else is run by the community. And we are also within reach of a few very important milestones. So for example, we are coming out with our own decentralized exchange. We believe that one of the practical use cases is liquidity of cryptocurrency. And to be put more crudely, it is the buying and selling of cryptocurrencies for people that are interested in the space, right? So people can say they're believers in the industry, but I think you're a true believer if you put your money where your mouth is, right? So therefore, basically providing a marketplace where people can buy and sell tokens is a natural place for blockchain usage.
Sure.
And the reason why decentralized exchange is superior to centralized exchange is because the decentralized exchange prevents various manipulative and cheating behaviors that centralized exchanges could have. Now, when it comes to decentralized exchanges, it's hard to become a truly decentralized exchange, right? Because the underlying network has to be fast and feeless in order for the order book matching to be on chain, in order for and therefore to make this decentralized exchange truly stand up to its name. Now, I will caveat, there are certain things about a DEX or decentralized exchange that cannot be fully decentralized. Like, for example, when it comes to payment gateway. So, for example, if we do a DEX, we can naturally trade anything issued on VITE, right? But Bitcoin is not issued on VITE. Ethereum is not issued on VITE. Now, what if someone wants to use our DEX to trade between a VITE native token and a non-VITE native token? So currently, we haven't found a great solution to tackle that, except for some centralized and semi-centralized setups. So we're still exploring that. But that being said, decentralized exchanges, in our opinion, are going to at least provide a complement to the status quo, if not a replacement of the status quo.
Right.
So we are very close to launching the first version of that. And one other thing is that we're listed on Bittrex. So, I think those guys probably know something about.
Yes. And what is exciting also, you are listed on Bittrex, as you said, you're developing the DEX, which is important to know because that's also going to ensure some sort of mechanisms for more control for building your ecosystem. But let's go back a moment again, not to digress, to the token value, because that's what I really want to get at, is how can people ensure as your ecosystem builds, and we're talking about not just your technological ecosystem with your team that's substantially building now, but also your economy, because that's what you're building. As that builds out through the means of business growth, how is that token through its metric design going to reflect that?
It's a good question. I mean, ultimately, the value of anything is tied to its usage in real life, right? So in the long run, that's the case at least. In the short run, you're subject to some speculative forces, but in the long run...
To be frank, let's take fiat, for example. Now, it's used internationally. Let's look at your dollar, the US dollar. Now, it doesn't really change in value that much, but it's used universally. Is that something that could potentially happen with VITE, or is it something of a new digital asset class where it actually is designed to, in fact, increase in value as the ecosystem grows?
I think when adoption has reached a certain point, then it will be very difficult to do away with the currency in question. So it's a different story with fiat, though, right? Because governments mandate it, right? It's against the law if you try to sell something and you mandate that you don't take US dollars in this country. That's the whole point. That's what fiat means.
Right.
So without the whole government backing, I think for cryptocurrencies to survive and thrive and prove out its utility, building adoption is key. You need to have that network of people that sort of are willing to transact with this currency. It's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? A virtuous cycle. So when enough people believe that this value is fine, then it can be transacted. Actually, what's another good example? I think Bitcoin is a good example, right? So the reason why Bitcoin is now being used in certain areas of the economy is because there's sufficient number of people that believe in its value. So I think for us, it's about ecosystem development. The thing that undergirdles all that is still the development of technology, right? If you don't have the tech, you can't have the ecosystem. But having the technology is not sufficient. So to get to that ecosystem, we're actually doing quite a few things. So decentralized exchange is actually a great example. Mm-hmm. So Nano was able to make was able to get an exchange to be very, very popular. So basically the point is, I think DEX will be a good solution to build ecosystem, because if you're able to find underappreciated coins out there similar to ours and list them prior to them being found or discovered by other major exchanges, then we would be able to attract certain people to come to our platform. And that would be our way of increasing.
I see. I'm reading between the lines. Essentially, Richard, what you're saying is the mass adoption factor is the key criterion for the value of your whole ecosystem, including your token. As you achieve more of that, that should also work in concert with the growth of your token. That's what I'm hearing. Now, if we can talk about the scalability itself, VITE is fast, literally by name. How is the performance going specifically? If we talk about proof, if we talk about testing, you say it's a race. How are you going comparatively?
I think the best way to test it out, honestly, is to try out our wallet. So people that have used it to transact all say that the speed is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. So I think you should just go ahead and try that. I mean, it's almost like no one provides a score of your shopping experience on Amazon. I don't know how big Amazon is in Australia, but...
It's a really good point you make. I've actually never had a CEO say that to me before. So really, the proof is in the experience.
Yeah, it's like Facebook doesn't point to its Yelp ratings for why people use it, right? Or Google doesn't, ask people to pull up New York Times to explain why it's useful. I mean, the point,
certainly, just to interject though, Richard, that certainly not to play the devil's advocate, but there are numbers that underpin the experience. That's the reality. So in that respect, for example, with Visa, they know inherently what those numbers are. So I guess the question I'm asking is, yes, the experience clearly it's been really successful because of the reviews, but what are the kind of numbers comparatively to others? Are you on track to maintain that pole position of being fast?
Yeah. So, I guess the short answer is, the point is, I think after you cross a couple of things, right? I'll say two things. Number one is, I think the measurement of your speed is very contingent upon the condition in which you measure it. Mm-hmm. So if you were to do some black box experiment with nodes all internally,
good point.
You don't require full consensus. You can produce a set of numbers, but it's meaningless. So,
and that's happening quite a lot. There's a lot of bullshit out there with the way that testing's being done. So you're saying the proof is in, again, the end user's experience.
Right. So I think it's much easier if you were to just download the wallet and play with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Well, that's clear. Let's move on now to VITE Pay and VITE Store. I really want to know how that update is, how things are looking there, because that's important for real-world applications and marketplace.
Yes, the international version of the VITE Store, we are applying a thorough makeover to the interface. That says nothing about the underlying technology. That's all independent, right? But the underlying technology is the key point of this whole website. You're able to purchase swags, currently VITE swags, by using the VITE technology. So you basically download the wallet, you scan some QR code, and the transaction basically happens within the blink of an eye. And then on top of that, in the spirit of building ecosystem, we're also adding some interesting products on there. We have a T-shirt that says, this is for Christmas. It's a little late now. We have a Santa Claus saying "Hodo, hodo, hodo," with one of the one of those being in the form of a VITE logo. We have another one called the hierarchical delegated proof of stake. That's our consensus algorithm, where the T-shirt basically has like a Christmas tree or a pyramid of literally beef steaks standing there.
So all the
that says delegate across it.
Right.
Right. Hierarchical.
So have they been successful? These kinds of fun merchandise items, have they been successful? Are people buying them?
Yeah, a lot of people are. So the way you buy them is you have to buy them with tokens issued on the VITE network. Currently, there's something called VITE Community Points, or VCP for short. And the only way to earn them is to participate in our campaigns. Like if someone retweets your video, for example, we might give them some VCPs. And then they can use that to purchase products on our website.
And so long-term, Richard, in the future, talk us through the vision of the kinds of things you envision will be available on this kind of platform.
Yeah, so I think it really goes back to our roots. Number one, we want to be a powerful payment network. And number two, we want to be a powerful dAPP platform. In terms of payment network, we also have partnership in Alchemy, previously named ACH Pay. And so Alchemy is in the process of acquiring merchants, both online and offline, mostly focused on Southeast Asia, on behalf of VITE. And they already developed a POS machine, which I have in my bag, but I had to get out of the room to get it. I can show it to you at the end of this.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But the POS machine is effectively like a fixture wallet, right, on the merchant's desk, and people can basically scan it to make payments. If you're familiar with Alibaba's payment system and WeChat's payment system, which are extremely popular in China, the payment process, the user experience is just like that, except you're paying with crypto. You can select from your list of favorite cryptos, you can pay with stablecoins. But the point is, Alchemy is working with us on that front. So on that front, we're pushing through the payment network.
And that's a big deal, because that's essentially a third party that's their skill set and specialty is building out that business. Now, I want to talk to you with regard to revenue, Richard, because it's one thing to have great tech, but it's another thing to be sustainable after the raise. And you have raised a substantial amount of money, well, enough to sustain this bear, and you've explained that in the last interview. But what about beyond that, with your products and service?
Yeah, well, I guess the answer is sort of universal for all blockchain projects, right? We all have to do to do this. So I think there's two answers to this. Number one is that at some point, VITE is going to become a community project, similar to Ethereum and any other dApp platforms out there, where we'll have open contribution, right? We're the open source, so developers will keep adding to it. But from day one, the entity, VITE Labs Limited, is set up as a nonprofit organization, right? So basically, our mandate is to help build something that it will eventually be open to that will be easy to be built upon by the public. Mm-hmm. So then basically this entity becomes I don't know the right term to put it, socialized good.
A socialized framework for access.
Yeah. And then I guess the second answer to you is that similar to the company Red Hat,
yes,
which basically runs Linux, which is offered completely free, and yet they still have a business model, right? So the way it works is that they create some system, and the system is super powerful, super popular, but there's still knowledge transfer or hand-holding necessary for enterprises that want to use it. Mm-hmm. So Red Hat makes its money by teaching people how to use it.
And it sounds like that's what you're planning on doing. So talk us through that. How are you going to hold the hand of the
we're currently in talks with a company based in Germany that whose sole business model is to help blockchain companies find clients in enterprises.
I was actually speaking with one recently called Unibright, and they do something much like that.
That's them.
Specifically. That's them.
Yeah,
okay.
That's them. So we're working with them, and they were waiting on us to finish our smart contract capabilities, which we did. Mm-hmm. So the next step is to basically show them how to use it. Before we show them how to do it, we have to make sure we have sufficient documentation, mm-hmm. and have the right developer tools to make.
And Richard, this is a really big deal. And the reason why is because obviously I know a bit about Unibright, having spoken with them twice now. The UK and any region in Europe is very pro-utility, very pro-blockchain, and their laws also enable them to work within the guidelines sufficiently to build out enterprise-related business, utilising blockchain technology. Now, you're in discussions with them right now. That's a big deal for potential revenue, for potential future partnerships. In that region particularly, given that we see regulation still quite opaque in the US. You must be excited about this.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. So, we're all about, so nothing would, that's why we're working diligently with the city of Syracuse, right? Mm. We have a few other potential use cases coming online, but
you can tell me later about those.
I'm happy to announce on your YouTube channel next time they become more real.
That would be great. And thanks for letting us know about this enterprise focus, because that's sort of something new that I haven't explored enough with you. And what about your team growth, Richard? Are we on track to see this continue with the two different teams that are established both in China and abroad in the US?
Yeah, absolutely. We have 40 people now. In terms of our engineering team, we have some very senior developers. We have good project managers and product managers. We have great designers. And on the Silicon Valley team, our chief marketing officer is here, along with me, the chief operating officer. We have our director of business development, and also we have creative marketing associate. So I think we have all the functions filled at this point. Any kind of growth will probably be in the form of further business development or further awareness driving. We are also looking for a security engineer at this point, actually, on the engineering side. Those are hard to come by, mm-hmm. but they're extremely important. So our team will still grow consistently and steadily.
Right, and obviously use cases as well. Talk us through some of the plans and the evidence with regard to use case specifically.
So City of Syracuse is a great example. Peer-to-peer microloans for low-income residents. Mm-hmm. Another use case is enterprise uses that we are exploring with this German affiliate.
That's exciting, yeah.
And then obviously we have our own dAPP, and we're also exploring a second dAPP to be added to our wallet. We're already in design phase.
Okay.
So
And Richard, can I ask you, by having this small dApps, you mentioned fun before, that's pretty important to really spread the word. And having a game, do you envision that that's going to also, create some sort of, by default, adoption of VITE because it's fun, because it's beyond just the blockchain?
Yeah, so some stats that I've heard about gaming are just astounding, right? So I think the point is to make a game that's so good and entertaining that people don't, and the user experience so smooth that people don't think about or realize that they're using some kind of blockchain platform, right? So ultimately, you want to kind of imagine being able to swap out everything you do on a computer with a blockchain solution, but having the experience remain just as good. I mean, why would you not do that, right? Because the blockchain effectively removes that central authority that could potentially slow things down for you. Or
exactly. So Richard, is your game good enough to be fun for those who aren't in the crypto sphere? That's the big thing. When we start to break those boundaries and become truly borderless by interest, not just by, the narrative of the technology.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, I think it's going to be fun. It's a fun little game. I mean, it's it's nothing like I don't know,
CryptoKitties or something like that.
Yeah, but it's going to be a fun little game that you can play on your phone, right? If you find a few minutes while you're waiting for a bus or something, you pull it out.
And what about incentivization, Richard? A game player is going to be able to interact with the token?
Oh, yes. I mean, you're going to need to have VITE in order to play it, but only a small amount of VITE. The whole point is to allow you to have fun, but also experience the power of the network in the meantime. But speaking of game, I also have this idea of, how there's these artworks provided, built by people that, like have you solve puzzles embedded in the art.
Yes.
So you can get the private key or an address for for Bitcoin. Yeah, we're thinking about coming out with something like that. Wouldn't it be cool? You go to downtown San Francisco and there's like a mural where you have some VITE embedded in that mural. This is never going to happen, but it's probably we're probably going to do something like that.
And Richard, to be honest, it's really cool that you are starting to think outside the box or outside the blockchain, frame of just technology and really understand the social dynamic, because again, it's about uptake. It's about people in the mainstream being able to understand this new technology in a fun way. So it's great that you've got team members, by the sound of it, that are understanding that imperative. Now, with your roadmap, Richard, let's talk about some of the things that we have discussed. We've mentioned the pre-mainnet release. You've also talked about the DEX, but I want to talk more about this multi-token wallet, the multi-token aspect as a new feature coming up, and also cross-chain gateways. Talk us through those two as new developments for Q1.
So we have something called one-click or one-step token issuance. That means it's super easy to issue a token on our platform. With Ethereum, if you want to launch a new token, you need to write your own smart contract code, and that's both inconvenient and subject to security problems. If you were to have a bad coding practice, then your smart contract can have loopholes. So the way you would issue a token on our platform is that most of the issuance logic is wired into the infrastructure layer of our network. So that when you issue a token, all tokens share the same security characteristics undergirdled by the VITE network. And so in terms of multi-token support, that's exactly what it is, right? So like you can issue a token within one step or one click with the help of this feature.
Okay.
In terms of your second question about the cross-chain gateway. So yes, so the whole point here is that our decentralized exchange will be used for trading not only tokens issued on our platform, but also coins outside of the ecosystem. But the way to do that is through this gateway. And so those that have been familiar with moving their tokens from ERC20 into our testnet, right? Which is something we talked about, I think, last time. Yes. We're encouraging people to convert their ERC20 into testnet so they can try out our platform. And it's going to be a system similar to that. So you basically transfer Bitcoin into our platform, and then when you transfer it out, you just get Bitcoin back.
And that
That
ecosystem,
lane there is the payment exchange gateway.
and that's going to open up the market even more for you, Richard, because you're doing that chain system. You're literally working from different ecosystems to build out the name of VITE. Now, what about the relationship? We talked about this briefly last time with virtual machines. You have your own core design with your WebAssembly. How is all that building, and how important is it that you're using WASM?
The virtual machine is done. It's done in the sense that the virtual machine is there to support Solidity++, right? That's the whole point of the virtual machine.
Sure.
So Solidity++ is now there. You can develop any program with Solidity++. So therefore, the virtual machine is the virtual machine is part of that system. So it's live as well.
So your virtual machine's done and dusted. It's working operational. And the WASM, how important is it? Because a lot of the other new platforms now, we talk about this race, they're using WASM. I won't name them, but there's a lot of talk about the value of WebAssembly.
Let's say most people in the world speak, French, right?
Yeah.
Then now WebAssembly is sort of like that layer that helps get French translated into Greek. And
that again is another big deal, because it becomes the lingua franca technologically for blockchain. And that opens up doors that you otherwise wouldn't have had you just had your own system with that one, as we talked about, with that one language. So again, it's exciting that these capacities and mechanisms are built into VITE to open it up to its potential. Richard, it's been really interesting talking with you. We've covered quite a lot today. Finally, I wanted to ask you with regard to your social strategy, your social media rather, and your community building. How's all that building, and what streams, what channels can people go to access more information as you build and update as you're doing now?
Yeah, I think there are a few things that we did right that we're fairly proud of. So I'll just go off from there.
Sure.
So one is we launched our own forum. So that has attracted a lot of attention from our fans.
Mm-hmm.
We just have Reddit. Reddit didn't seem to work as well. There's just way too many distractions. People can move away from your page easily. With the forum, it's like an exclusive environment, right? Like everything you read about is VITE. So that's a good move, and we'll continue to basically push on promoting our forum, getting more people to be active in there. Second thing is that we're trying to get more wallet downloads and more wallet daily engagements. So the airdrop within the wallet is certainly one way to do that. The game inside of there's another. The DEX, when it comes out, will also be inside the wallet. So the wallet is your gateway, right, to everything VITE. In terms of regular social media strategies, Twitter, Medium, Reddit, Discord, I think we have a healthy amount of presence there. We have trained community managers. We're constantly launching new, fresh campaigns with very creative ideas. I'll give an example. So when you send a V transaction, you can actually provide a note as part of that transaction, right? It's like if I send you something or if you send something to me, you can say, "Hey, Richard, how's it going?"
Like a post-it note.
Right. So we basically use that as a system to play games, right? Imagine sending V to each other as a way of communicating. It's like me sending you a text message that includes some VITE. So, we see that kind of thing a lot in Twitch, or those chat forums. So it's exciting that you're embedding that capacity for more communication. Right. I mean, you could basically imagine a quiz answering system where you would answer by sending transactions through VITE. And you can't do that with Ethereum for two reasons. Number one is it's slow, right? Number two is that you have to spend gas. With us, it's fast and there's no gas spending, right? Actually, that's the whole point of this. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Richard, you've made it really clear. There's a lot going on. And already, just in this short time frame between when we last spoke and now, there's significant updates. For those who would like to know more, certainly check out all of the means in which you can find out more about VITE in the different channels, as Richard's mentioned. There's Telegram, Discord, Twitter, and Medium certainly is a great way to read up more on all the different aspects of VITE. It stands for fast. It's all about not just being scalable. We've heard that narrative last year. This is about the real deal company trying to do something that's non-for-profit based on trying to be a protocol that's open sourced. And now we know for sure they also have a strategy to be viable long-term with an enterprise plan. So it's really great to hear all these different plans you have. You're a real working system with a real team. Richard, is there anything you'd like to say just to finish off the interview for those who like to hear you finally speak about VITE today?
I think you covered a lot, really. You're very comprehensive. So thank you very much for your time. And I look forward to interacting with your viewers on our forum and our various social media channels. The forum is actually now part of the wallet, so you can go into the wallet to participate in the forum as well. So go download our wallet.
Sounds great, mate. Well, thank you for your time. VITE means fast. This wasn't a fast interview, but certainly I've learned a great deal, and I appreciate your time, Richard. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.